Hello, hello. Now we're going to look at the English or customary measurement system, because we already covered metrics. In this lesson, we're actually not really doing anything that's in the current book. There's a handout that you'll find in PAL under the unit that covers what we're doing here. And in fact, that handout is on the next slide after this. So we're going to be just working on conversions within the U.S. customary units. The title in the book of this lesson is dimensional analysis, which usually means you're converting from English to metric or metric to English, or something like that, where you're converting between systems. But we're just going to stay within the customary measurement system here for our conversions. So we're not actually doing dimensional analysis. And if you look under the PAL space under content for this unit, this is the first page of the handout that you need to focus on for this lesson. I did not post the second page here in the slides, but there's two pages. The first page has this chart, which has the measurements that you're responsible for. Make sure you know these, because they will not be provided on your test. And it highlights two methods that could be used for your conversions. And there's a third method that you see used in the book, or you see used in science classes and other places. I'll try to show you all the methods when I do some examples here in a second. But yeah, make sure you get that worksheet and go to page 2 for practice problems with answers. So make sure you get both pages of that. Alright, so what are some of the conversions you might do? Well, for instance, you might be told, well, you got 108 feet of something. You guys are probably familiar with a foot by now on a ruler is usually a foot long. And you want to figure out, well, how many yards is this? Now, there's a couple of different methods you could do. You could look at whether you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit or a smaller unit to a larger unit to decide whether you're going to multiply or divide. Larger to smaller means you multiply. Smaller to larger, you divide. I learned this crazy hand motion when I was a kid to remember this, but I can't really show that to you right now because I'm not set up with the video camera. So I'll have to leave that out. Alright, so in this one we're going from feet to yards. A foot is smaller than a yard. So we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, so we have to divide. So we have to take 108 feet and divide by whatever the units are. Now if you look at your worksheet, it tells you in that little box on the first page that there's 3 feet in a yard. So we're going to have to use this. We have to use the fact that there's 3 feet in a yard. So we're going to divide by 3 feet per 1 yard. So what that essentially ends up doing is doing 108 feet times 1 yard over 3 feet. Notice that the feet cancel, just leaving you with yards. So you've got 108 divided by 3, and that'll give you yards. 108 divided by 3 is 36. So you end up getting 36 yards. Now you probably don't have to write all that out every time that you do the problem. You can probably kind of think about the units in your head, but if you take a science class, they're going to want you to make sure or if you're going into nursing or anything like that, they want to make sure that you're keeping track of your units, because units are very important, especially when you're doing something like administering medicine. You don't want to get the units wrong. Or if you want to know what happens when you get units wrong, ask NASA. It was a problem where they had two teams. Like teams in different places working on the same satellite mission. One team was using the English or customary measures, and the other was using metric measures, and they didn't at the end put it all together into the same measurement system. So the units were wrong, ultimately, in the numbers they were putting in. And that sent the satellite crashing. Talk about millions of dollars gone to waste, up in smoke. So it is important to keep track of your units and what's going on with those. All right, anyways. Another method, that was one method for solving this. Another method is to set up a proportion. You could say 108 feet is to X yards as 3 feet is to 1 yard. And you could use your knowledge of solving proportions to solve this. You could say, well, 108 feet times 1 yard equals 3 feet times X yards. And you could solve for your X, because ultimately you're going to have 108 feet times 1 yard divided by 3 feet. It's going to equal X yards. So you'll again see the feet cancel out for you. And you'll have 108 divided by 3 again, and you'll get 36. 36 yards equals X yards. So you get 36 still, same answer. And on your worksheet, both of these methods are discussed. Now, third method, slightly different than these two. It's the same kind of concept, but a little different. You would take 108 feet over X yards, and then you want to multiply that by your conversion factor in such a way that the units are going to cancel themselves out anyways. So you're trying to convert the 108 feet. And as you're working through this, you've got 3 feet in 1 yard. So you always set this up so that you're going to end up canceling out things the way you need to cancel them out. Or you don't even have to put the X yards over underneath the 108 feet. You could just leave that out and just put a 1 there. Then when you finish doing this, you'll have 108 over 3 yards, which gives you, again, 36 yards. So it's just a slightly different way of setting it up. So pick the way that works best for you. I don't personally care what method you use for solving it, as long as you end up with the right answer in the right units. But in the future, just be aware that if you're going into nursing, they're going to have their way they want you to set it up. So just be careful and pay attention to those classes. All right, let's see. How about we look at a couple more examples? How about we take 6 pints and see how many quarts that comes out to be. Well, 2 pints equals 1 quart. I can kind of see this really quickly. 2 times 3 gives you 6, so 1 times 3 will give you 3. You can see the answer already. But you can pick whatever method you want. A pint is smaller than a quart, smaller to larger. Divide by 2 pints per 1 quart. So you're going to divide 6 by 2. That'll give you the 3 quarts. Or set up your proportions. 6 pints is to X quarts. That equals, and then set up 2 pints is to 1 quart. That's your conversion factor. So one fraction, and when you do the proportions, one fraction is your problem, the other fraction is the conversion factor, and then solve for X. And again, you'll get X equals 3. So however you do it, you'll get the same answer. Time. Let's see, 6.3 years equals how many days? This is an example of going larger to smaller, so you're going to multiply. 6.3 years. Going to multiply by the fact there's 365 days in a year. So your years cancel out. You do 6.3 times 365. We're just doing typical year. We're not doing 365 and a quarter or 366 leap year. We're just doing 365. 2,299.5. So you end up multiplying that 365 with the 6.3. All right, last one. Let's take 14 hours and figure out how many seconds that is. On your chart, it doesn't give you a conversion factor for hours to seconds, but it does give you hours to minutes and minutes to seconds. So let's figure out how many minutes are in 14 hours. Let's see, there's 60 minutes in an hour. We're going from larger to smaller, so multiply. The hours will cancel out, and we're left with 0, 24, 840 minutes. And then take your 840 minutes and see how many seconds that comes out to be. Again, larger to smaller, multiply. Times 60 seconds per minute. And when you do that, you get 0, 0, 24, 48, 50 minutes left in seconds. So you get 50,400 seconds. So some of your problems are going to be more than one step. Might not be able to do it just in one step. You might have to think, okay, what do I know? I don't necessarily know offhand how many seconds are in an hour. I could find out and use that, or I could say, oh, hours to minutes, minutes to seconds. It's up to you. Now, if you really wanted to, you could say, well, 60 seconds in a minute times 60 minutes per hour tells me there's 3,600 seconds per hour. And I could have used that. I could have done 14 hours times 3,600 seconds per hour. And I would have gotten the same thing. I would have gotten the 50,400. So just know that there's more than one way. Pick the way you're comfortable doing, and that'll be fine. Practice, practice. There's lots of practice problems on that worksheet. Make sure you know how to do all of them. And memorize those conversion factors because they will not be provided to you on the test. Okay, thank you for joining us.